as President Donald Trump prepares to begin his second term. His administration's intention to further expand tariffs on Chinese imports is raising concerns about potential negative impacts on the U.S. economy and industries. While these tariffs are designed to protect American interests, historical data and expert analysis suggest that such policies may cause more harm domestically than they do to the intended foreign targets. During his first term, President Trump imposed tariffs on a wide range of Chinese goods, aiming to address trade imbalances and protect domestic industries. However, these measures often led to unintended consequences, such as higher consumer costs. Tariffs act as taxes on imports, and businesses frequently pass these additional costs onto consumers. For example, after tariffs were applied to Chinese goods, prices for U.S. intermediate goods rose by 10 to 30%, which directly impacted consumer prices. Job losses in key sectors also became a significant concern. The manufacturing sector, which the tariffs were meant to protect, saw job reductions due to higher production costs. A study by the Federal Reserve found that steel tariffs resulted in approximately 75,000 fewer manufacturing jobs than would have been the case without the tariffs. The potential impacts of renewed tariff policies are concerning. The administration's plan to reintroduce and expand tariffs on Chinese imports could intensify these issues, creating supply chain disruptions. U.S. importers and manufacturers that depend on Chinese components may face increased costs and logistical challenges, which could lead to production delays and a loss of competitiveness. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has warned that new tariffs could undermine progress in reducing inflation, leading to higher costs for households and businesses. The agricultural sector, particularly in the Midwest, could also be severely affected. Farmers may face retaliatory tariffs from China, reducing demand for U.S. agricultural exports and causing financial strain in farming communities. In response to escalating trade tensions, China has strategically diversified its import sources and invested heavily in boosting domestic production to reduce dependence on U.S. goods. For example, in 2023, China increased agricultural imports from countries like Brazil and Argentina, which together accounted for nearly 40% of China's agricultural imports, surpassing the U.S. share. China has also significantly invested in domestic agriculture to enhance self-sufficiency, focusing on boosting local production and policies aimed at achieving food security. Additionally, China is working to restructure global food supply chains through overseas agricultural investments and technology transfer. China's energy transition efforts are another area of focus, with the country investing $676 billion in clean energy technologies in 2023, making it the world's largest investor in this field. These investments aim to reduce reliance on foreign energy sources. Similarly, China is aggressively ramping up manufacturing output in high-tech sectors like silicon wafers, with substantial government subsidies for industries such as solar cells and electric vehicles. The evolving trade dynamics between the U.S. and China have caused significant shifts in bilateral trade flows. Increasing trade tensions, marked by tariffs, sanctions, and other restrictions imposed by the U.S., have pushed China to reduce, and in some cases completely stop, importing several key American products. Instead of relying on the U.S. as a primary supplier, China has actively diversified its import sources and invested in strengthening domestic production. This strategic shift is reshaping global supply chains and altering economic relationships worldwide. The U.S. China trade relations have experienced considerable turbulence since 2018, marked by reciprocal tariffs and strategic economic shifts. In 2018, the Trump administration initiated a sweeping series of tariffs on Chinese imports as part of a broader effort to address trade imbalances and protect U.S. industries from what was described as unfair trade practices by China. The tariffs targeted steel and aluminum imports, imposing a 25% tariff on steel and a 10% tariff on aluminum, citing national security concerns under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. The administration argued that reliance on foreign metals posed risks to critical U.S. industries, including defense and infrastructure. Further tariffs were imposed under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, which targeted China for alleged intellectual property theft and forced technology transfers. The first round of Section 301 tariffs covered $50 billion worth of Chinese goods, primarily focusing on industrial and technological products like machinery, semiconductors, and aerospace components. Subsequent rounds expanded the tariffs to include consumer goods, eventually affecting over $360 billion in imports by the end of 2019. These actions marked a significant escalation in trade tensions between the two countries. The trade conflict between the world's two largest economies has set the stage for a prolonged and contentious trade war. Critics of the policy have argued that the tariffs have disproportionately impacted American businesses dependent on imported materials, raising costs and complicating supply chains. Additionally, some economists have questioned the legitimacy of using national security as a justification for the Section 232 tariffs, suggesting that the move was more about leveraging economic power than addressing genuine security concerns. By 2020, the U.S. China trade war had escalated significantly, with both countries imposing tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of goods. American exporters faced increased barriers in the Chinese market, diminishing their price competitiveness. China's tariffs on U.S. goods rose from 8% to over 20%, while it reduced tariffs for other countries, further disadvantaging U.S. exporters. Meanwhile, the U.S. imposed tariffs on approximately $350 billion worth of Chinese imports, pushing the average tariff rate from 3.1% in 2017 to 19.3% by January 2020. In retaliation, China imposed tariffs on around $100 billion worth of U.S. exports, raising its average tariff rate on American goods from 8% to 20.3%. This escalation caused significant disruptions in trade flows. U.S. exports to China dropped, with sectors like agriculture, automotive, and machinery experiencing substantial declines. For example, U.S. agricultural exports to China saw a sharp decline, particularly soybeans, which were hit hard by the increased tariffs. As of 2024, trade tensions continue to persist. The Biden administration has announced plans to increase tariffs on various Chinese products, including a 50% tariff on solar wafers and polysilicon, as well as new 25% duties on certain tungsten products, effective January 1, 2025. In response, China has implemented export restrictions on critical minerals and tightened controls on graphite, a material essential for industries like electric vehicles, which has a direct impact on U.S. manufacturers. If you're enjoying the video so far, please consider hitting the like button to help us reach a wider audience. Sharing your thoughts and feedback in the comments also makes a huge difference. Thank you for watching, and let's continue. The decline in U.S. agricultural exports to China serves as a stark reflection of shifting trade dynamics between the two global giants. One of the clearest indicators of this transformation is the sharp contraction in China's imports of American agricultural products. Soybeans, once a cornerstone of U.S. exports to China, vividly illustrate this change. In 2016, the United States accounted for nearly 40% of China's total soybean imports. However, by the early 2020s, that share had dramatically fallen to about 18%. During the same period, Brazil, which had previously supplied just under half of China's soybeans, saw its share increase to a commanding 76%. This shift was particularly accelerated by China's imposition of a 25% tariff on U.S. soybeans in 2018. Which encouraged Chinese buyers to pursue long-term purchasing contracts with South American producers. A similar trend emerged in corn imports. Until recently, the United States was a major supplier of corn to China, but by 2023, Brazil had surpassed the U.S. as China's top corn source. Additionally, China has made significant investments in more efficient domestic corn production, aiming to reduce its reliance on U.S. imports in the long run. U.S. cotton exports followed a comparable downward trajectory, hitting a 9-year low as China diversified its sources and increasingly focused on developing its own textile industry. This shift in sourcing cotton and other goods has led to substantial revenue losses for U.S. cotton growers and exporters. The demand for U.S. meat exports, especially pork and beef, has also been negatively impacted. U.S. pork exports to China fell to a 6-year low, while beef imports dropped to a 4-year low. This decline is part of China's broader strategy to bolster its own livestock sector, while seeking alternative protein sources from Europe and South America. Even niche products like sorghum, a less widely traded agricultural commodity, have seen a steep reduction in demand from China, falling by 60.8% year-over-year and hitting a 2-year low. As China spreads its agricultural imports across multiple countries and invests in domestic production, it has significantly reduced its vulnerability to supply disruptions, while also strengthening its position in global commodity markets. These shifts in agricultural trade patterns are not isolated to the farming sector but extend to the U.S. industrial sector, particularly in the recycling industry, which has been hit hard by the declining demand for scrap materials from China. Before 2018, China was the largest importer of U.S. scrap copper, plastics, and paper, which was crucial for American recyclers. However, escalating trade tensions and stricter Chinese import policies caused U.S. scrap copper exports to China to plummet by more than 50% between 2017 and 2018. This dramatic decline disrupted the U.S. recycling industry, forcing many facilities to scale back operations, lay off workers, and deal with reduced revenues. In some states, recycling revenues dropped by as much as 25–30% by 2020. and industrial communities that relied on exports saw significant economic hardship. The 2018 Chinese waste import ban marked a turning point in global recycling practices. China banned 24 categories of waste materials, including plastics, unsorted paper, and scrap metals, citing contamination concerns and environmental priorities. As a result, the U.S. lost its critical market for recycling, leading to a glut of recyclable materials that overwhelmed domestic processing facilities and raised costs for municipalities. While some alternative markets emerged in Southeast Asia, these countries soon followed China's lead, imposing their own restrictions, further limiting U.S. export opportunities. The impact was global, as countries began to rethink their recycling systems, prompting widespread adjustments. For the United States, these changes in both the agricultural and industrial sectors have led to significant financial strain. The reduced demand from China has translated into billions of dollars in lost export revenue. U.S. soybean farmers, for example, have struggled to cover operational costs, with many small and medium-sized farming enterprises being forced to sell their holdings or declare bankruptcy. The ripple effects of these challenges have been felt throughout rural communities, where local transportation, storage, and logistics services that depend on agricultural exports have been severely impacted. This downturn has resulted in depressed farm incomes, reduced property values, curtailed consumer spending, and limited employment opportunities. In the industrial sector, the loss of the Chinese market for U.S. scrap metals led to plant closures, layoffs, and a slowdown in production schedules. As global competitors moved in to fill China's gap in imports, U.S. exporters found it increasingly difficult to regain lost market share. On a broader macroeconomic level, these reduced exports contributed to a growing U.S. trade deficit, dampening overall economic growth. Regions that relied heavily on export-oriented industries experienced elevated unemployment rates, exacerbating income inequality and stifling local economic development. The use of tariffs and sanctions by the United States, intended to address trade imbalances and protect intellectual property, often resulted in unintended consequences. Rather than forcing China to make policy changes, these measures incentivized China to secure more stable and diversified import relationships with other countries, and to innovate domestically. As a result, the U.S. has seen its leverage in trade negotiations diminish. China's pivot away from U.S. imports has helped forge stronger partnerships with other major commodity exporters, reinforcing the emergence of a more multipolar global trade environment. Beyond simply diversifying its suppliers, China has made substantial strides in improving its agricultural and industrial efficiency through biotechnology, precision agriculture, and enhanced livestock feed efficiency. These developments are significantly reducing China's reliance on external markets and increasing its independence in critical sectors. This growing self-sufficiency positions China to better weather future geopolitical tensions and external market fluctuations, including potential shifts in U.S. trade policies. The long-term impact of these developments is clear. The decline in Chinese imports from the United States has brought considerable economic hardship to American farmers, manufacturers, and communities, while simultaneously strengthening China's resilience and autonomy in global markets. U.S. strategies rooted in protectionist measures, such as retaliatory tariffs, have often backfired, resulting in lost revenue, forfeited market share, and diminished bargaining power. Moving forward, it is clear that both nations may need to adopt a more cooperative approach to trade policies, one that encourages dialogue, lowers barriers, and enforces fair intellectual property rules. Such an approach could help stabilize bilateral relations, restore growth opportunities, and foster more balanced and sustainable trade arrangements that benefit both countries in the long run. By pursuing a collaborative agenda, rather than relying primarily on punitive measures, the United States and China could work toward more equitable, mutually beneficial trade relations. This would not only improve the economic prospects for both nations, but also contribute to global economic stability and prosperity. Thank you for watching this video. We greatly appreciate your time and support. If you found this content insightful or inspiring, please consider liking the video and subscribing to stay connected with our community. Your support means a lot to us. You can watch another video on our channel, which is now displayed on the screen.